So we'll go ahead and introduce ourselves just to get started, and I'll talk to you a little bit about what we're going to, hopefully, you'll be able to see today. So my name is Jane Rex. I'm the director in the Office of Transfer Services at Appalachian State University, and our office was established in 2010 as the Office of Transfer Articulation, and we thought that the only thing that we were going to do was evaluate credit. And I don't know about you all, but as soon as we had the word transfer in our name, and I know some of you can attest to that, when we had transfer in our name, every phone call came to us. Any phone call, even from our admissions office, from faculty, from advisors, from our community college partners. So because of the need, an identified need, and a lot of data collection to present to our provost and our administration, our office grew from a staff of 3 doing credit evaluation to a staff of 8, and now we can service transfer students from the time they're thinking about coming until the time they graduate. So we are very fortunate to be able to have those resources available, because what we have found out is that by having an office where we're all together in one location, it minimizes the gaps that could potentially occur. Now, does that mean we don't work closely with some of these other offices? We work very closely with these offices. How did you do that?
It was in Walnut Street.
Oh, okay. So I'm going to go ahead and let, just pass it over to Jonathan and Trina.
So my name is Jonathan Loss. I'm the Associate Dean for General Education at Catawba Valley Community College.
And I'm Trina Palmer. I'm a math professor at Appalachian State University.
Thank you. I appreciate it. So one of the exciting... Oh, I'm sorry, Maxwell. I'm not used to using a microphone. My voice does project. So again, I'm so grateful to Trina and Jonathan for being here. One of the things that we pride ourselves on in the Office of Transfer Services is our collaboration not only across campus, but with our community college partners. So a little bit about the session goals today: the importance of curriculum alignment, how to organize a transfer symposium, and the outcomes of building relationships as a result of the transfer symposium. So hopefully we'll be able to give you some insight to those things. So just to give you a little idea of Appalachian, we're a little remote. Has anyone ever been to Boone, North Carolina? Oh, okay. So some of you know where we are. But we are nestled in the Blue Ridge Mountains. It's a beautiful location. Most of us love it there. You're not ever lukewarm on Appalachian, so that's what we tell students when they come to visit. You either really love it or it's not for you. You know, we're not within a half an hour or an hour of, well, we're in an hour of a target. But I said, if you need to be within a half hour of a target, this would not be the place for you. So again, our enrollment, I think context is very important. So we brought in this past fall almost 3,500 first-year students and almost 1,300 transfer students. Transfer students do make up 30% of our total population of that 19,150. And in addition to providing some context here, we do have 58 community colleges in North Carolina. And if you look at, we're located up in here, my hand's a little shaky, but up in the northwest corner of North Carolina. But the interesting part of that too is we're one of 16 public institutions in North Carolina: UNC Greensboro, Wilmington, University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill, NC State. So you can imagine, with 58 community colleges and 16 public 4-year institutions, we're all competing for a lot of dollars. So I think that's the most interesting part. And then to be able to establish and develop those relationships. I think one of the most important things for me is we also have great relationships with what we call our sister institutions. So we have someone from NC State here. Who else from North Carolina? Anyone else? UNC Charlotte. 2 of my children graduated from UNC Charlotte. Can you believe they didn't graduate from Appalachian? But yeah, so we love our sister institutions. So let's talk about why a transfer symposium. We started transfer symposiums in 2014 as a result. Well, you know, in 2010, like I said, when we started this office, we thought, well, we're doing what we're supposed to be doing. We had no idea there was not another office like us because, as most of you know, most of your credit is evaluated either in the admissions office or the registrar's office. So 2 positions from the registrar's office was repurposed to create this Office of Transfer Articulation. So as we grew and tried to decide what our office was going to be and how we were going to serve, we also found out we started really developing relationships with our community college partners, but what we realized is the people who didn't understand transfers were the people on our own campus. So thus, the support we had for a campus conversation about transfer student success in 2014, very supported by our administration. We had 220 faculty and staff attend. They came from all areas of the campus. They came from academic departments, support services, auxiliary services. They could have been in student accounts. They could have been in parking and traffic. But what we try to do is have departments come as teams. Like, just don't send one person. You know how that goes when you go to a conference or go someplace and one person comes back to the department and tries to talk about all the wonderful things. It's just so much easier when you have a team. So we had, like I said, about 220 folks who attended. Now, what was interesting is, and I don't want to spend too much time in the previous symposiums, but Mark Poisel, who is a board member, an NIST board member, was our keynote speaker. And what was really interesting is he really addressed transfer, and it wasn't necessarily received well by everybody, but he said what needed to be said. So as I was clapping, Trina, were you? I don't know if you were at that one. I don't think. Oh. Well, no, because of your mindset with transfer. But for those people who, because Appalachian is a very first-year centric and traditional campus environment. So, but anyway, so that's how that conversation got started. And as a result of that, Jonathan, would you be my Vanna and hold up that? That. Our demographic. So as a result of that, each year we publish all the demographics of our transfer population and who they are. So I just left them up here if you wanted to take one before you leave. The next one, so as a result of that, then our faculty and staff said, well, we want to know about specific populations. We want to know about veterans, we want to know about adults, and we want to know about early college. In North Carolina, we have approximately 116, probably more now, early college and innovative high schools, where students can earn an associate degree before they transfer to us. And it's a population that was really frightening to our campus community when they're thinking about having potentially 18-year-olds in their upper level courses. So that was continuing the conversation. So that was held a year and a half later. And as a result of that symposium, we had the Magic Bus Tour. And that's when faculty and staff said, we really want to know what it's like on a community college campus. So then we invited a certain number of people to participate in the Magic Bus Tour, and we went to one of our partner community colleges and spent a day and had an academic focus, a student services focus, tour of campus, and a panel from the community college students. So that was very positive. So the provost and the administration at the university loves the symposiums, and now they decided that they want to fund us for these symposiums. So we listened to our community college partners, Jonathan being one of them, and they said, well, let's move on. We want a little bit, we want to communicate with the faculty. We want to know that our students are prepared to come to Appalachian, okay? So we said, well, let's do something on curriculum alignment. And so if we look at why curriculum alignment is important, it was not only to continue with the relationships that we currently had with our community college partners, but really to build on that, and particularly from a faculty perspective. You know, I want Jonathan to be able to call Trina at any time and say, could you help me with this? Or Trina to be able to say to Jonathan, hey, Jonathan, you're not teaching your students what they need to know. she would never do that. He does a great job anyway. But to be able to have that kind of relationship where they can come together and ask questions and be sounding boards for one another. We had concerns from our campus faculty who would say, we don't think that the students are coming to us academically prepared. So as a result of University of North Carolina system strategic plan, promoting STEM and graduation rates in STEM majors was very important. And we'll talk a little bit more about the format and what we did. But again, so we wanted to address the needs of our community college partners, the conversations that our faculty were having, because a lot of times they would call and say, well, we don't think the students are prepared. A perfect example, and some of the things were said today, I always use chemistry as an example. The chair of the chemistry department called me and said, Jane, I think we need to have admission requirements into chemistry for transfer students. Well, I said, well, for one, you have to have it for all students then. But anyway, so I said, well, why don't you, she said she didn't feel they were prepared. And I said, well, we can have a conversation. I said, collect your data, and when you have your data together, come back and we'll talk. So she called me a couple months later and she says, we don't need to do that. And I said, why? She goes, well, actually, the transfer students, after that first semester of transfer shock, our transfer students are really graduating at or higher GPA than our native students. And then we also found that the course sequencing was a little off for all students, so we changed that as well. So again, when we had in that first symposium, we also addressed, tried to dispel some of the myths as well. And then, of course, just to study student success, retention and persistence. We feel we've done enough work in our office through the years and have the staff in place that we felt like understanding and supporting retention and persistence was probably our next step. So, but that would be why the curriculum alignment is important, because you want them to be successful when they come onto campus. So this was our transfer symposium, and this is just sort of our logo for the symposium. And as you can see here, the different courses that were selected, physics, chemistry, math, biology were our STEM courses, but we also had our associate dean. We're real fortunate. We really do have a nice transfer receptive culture on our campus. Not 100%. But for the most part, it's fabulous. So our Associate Dean of Business did hire 2 graduate students to do a year-long research on how transfer students, and from each of the community colleges in North Carolina, how they performed in accounting and economics. So did they take accounting 1 at the community college and accounting 2 at Appalachian? He did all types of research on that, and he said, I think we need to work on accounting and economics. We'd like to be involved in the project. So that's why we included the business courses too. Now, after we selected these, then I had anthropology and geology approach me and say, why can't we do this too? I said, well, these are really foundational, as you can see. We'll talk a little bit later about the foundational courses, but here are some of the goals of the symposium. Of course, faculty collaboration, and Trina and Jonathan will talk to you a little bit about how they, shared syllabi, teaching methodologies. We wanted to address student academic preparedness. We wanted to inform community college advisors. They were a piece to this too, not just faculty from community colleges, and just to be able to create new and innovative strategies and ways that we could collaborate. So the format, again, going back to, we had 6 foundational courses. So we felt like those 4 courses, if a student was successful and really prepared in those courses, then that was a good start, and we could identify some of the progress that could be made. We invited 13 community colleges. Now, how we picked 13? We took our top maybe 7 or 8 community colleges, transfer institutions. And then we also have special relationships with other community colleges. So we said, how many is too much, how many is too little? There's nothing scientific about this. We had no idea. We said, well, if we invite 13 and we limit it to 8 people per campus, can we manage that? And then we thought, oh, gee, what if only 7 community colleges agree to come and 2 people from each community college? what happened is all 13 community colleges agreed to come, and maybe not all of them had 8 representatives, but there was some strong support from each of the community colleges. It was really shocking. So we provided travel stipends for them, and then there was also grants for collaboration. So that was somewhat of the format. So some of the logistics, and we could talk about logistics maybe during the Q&A or a little bit later, but I went ahead and sent invitations out to the presidents, either the president, chief academic officers, or the student development and student affairs vice chancellor. One of the things that made it a little bit easier for me is I spent 23 years on a community college campus, so I knew a lot of these, well, I know 3 presidents of the community college who used to be my boss, and I was on their search committee. So I had relationships with a lot of these people, so it made it a little bit easier. But they were to identify a lead at their community college. Jonathan, you were the lead at your, yep. See, he's so good, isn't he? We sent a survey out to all of the faculty participating at Appalachian, as well as our community college partners, to just capture expectations of the day. What do you think is important? What are your expectations? What should we discuss? And then I think when I say logistics, is really tough, the communication part. Not only communicating back and forth with your academic departments on campus, but also with your community college. Like I said, if you're doing 13 community colleges, it was a lot of communication, but not only before the day, but after. So here's the symposium schedule. We had a check-in, and at that point, all of our faculty who were involved in the symposium from Appalachian, just, again, interdisciplinary discussions. They just sort of mingled with the community college folks. We had their discipline, their academic department on their name tag, so you knew how to identify them. Of course, we had student transfer advisors, whatever capacity that was in, there as well. Of course, a brief welcome from our Associate Vice Chancellor of, Associate Provost, actually, because Mark did the welcome. So we had several senior administrators there to do the welcome. And then what we did, and this is part of how we do our symposiums, if you are awarded a grant from a symposium, the next symposium you have to present on the results of that grant. So we had grant recipients from the Magic Bus tour to go ahead and just do an overview of what they did, because we want to hold those departments, accountable for the work that they do. Trina has been, I think you've gotten a grant every year we did it, haven't you? So I have to tell you, our math department just is phenomenal. So I don't know why everyone doesn't like math, other than very few people can do it. Is that right? No? Okay. So, and then we had a nice lunch, and then they broke out into the curriculum alignment in academics and advising. So, like, Trina took a group of people with her they went to the math department. They went to the biology department. So they went to those places on campus. And then we had our transition advisor head up our transfer counselors or advisors from the community college, and they had a whole separate itinerary for the day. And then we got back together at the end, closing discussion to find out what we learned. So that was what the day looked like. So now what I'm going to do is turn it over to these folks so they can tell you a little bit about how in math it was organized and some of the things they discussed.
So I was going to talk about why we picked those, but Jane has already addressed that, so I'll skip that. I guess I'll point out that I know the people in the chemistry department fairly well, and they really wanted to make sure they showed their facilities to the community college, because she finds the transfer students, when they come, are shocked that they get their own equipment drawer, so they wanted to show them the facilities, and I think biology was similar. All right, so the math. I really wanted to address 2 separate math classes. So we broke into 2 groups. The first one is a quantitative literacy course. At the community college, it's Math 143. At Appalachian, it's Math 1010. So they're both quantitative literacy courses. both, in my mind, great courses. The problem is that the community college course is a 3-hour course where we require 4 hours of general education. So Appalachian created 2 one-hour courses for transfer students so that they could not, don't have to take 4 hours. And the complaints from the one person that teaches those classes is that the transfer students aren't prepared. So I really wanted them to communicate to find out what is actually happening in the quantitative literacy course, because her complaint was algebra skills. And then after that day, she's like, oh, now I understand now. And she has readjusted the course to fit the needs of those students. So, yay, success.
And so let me interject.
Yes?
I do that all the
I know.
time. But I think what was really interesting is, and again, when we talk about creating transfer-friendly policies, what happened is a transfer student at Appalachian had to take, because of the 3 and 4 hours, if they took this math 143, this 3-hour math, they had to take an entire math course, another math course, to meet that requirement. Now, the math department, not that I want to throw you guys under the bus, but the math department did not want to budge on they wanted the 4 hours, okay? But we were able to compromise, and they said, well, why don't we, instead of having a student have to take another 3 or 4 hour course, why don't we just add this math lab, and then it satisfies our, the pedagogy or whatever you want to call it, their, just their academic standards, and we were still able to have a transfer-friendly compromise. So again, I think that's a situation where there's no panacea, and sometimes you just have to have those conversations and make those compromises. I'm grateful. I think it's sort of crazy, but I'm really grateful that they're putting the resources in to being able to do that. So that's just an example.
Yeah, and just to add to that, the quantitative literacy course at the community college has both statistics and finance in it, and our 1-hour courses was one 1-hour course was on finance, one was on statistics. So now the person is trying to create a like mathematics of music or mathematics of art, so that they're not duplicating content. So it's still work in progress. The other course, the other room was I call it pre-calculus room. We've had some crazy changes with our pre-calculus. Like Appalachian has a 4-hour pre-calculus course which prepares you for calculus. But the community college, they have 2 4-hour pre-calc classes that together prepare you. So it's 8 hours versus 4 hours. And so if you're a community college student and only take the first one, you can't get into calculus. But really I just wanted people that taught pre-calc at Appalachian to talk with the community college folks, and it's just amazing the different content in those classes. And I guess you guys don't necessarily have the flexibility that we have.
We have a common course numbering system among all 58 community colleges in North Carolina. So, which is really nice for transfer, because all the 16 state universities know what they're getting when they get 171. Same. We have published student learning outcomes at the state level as well. It's not just a course description, but actual student learning outcomes.
I just want to point out that you do get credit for a math course, just you can't get into calculus with that one class. So it's not like it's wasted. All right, I think this is you.
I keep flipping. So I think Trina said a lot of this, but we split the math into 2 different rooms, one for Math 143 and one for Math 171. We had university and community college faculty in both rooms, and it was really just a free-flowing discussion. We had a few set questions that we started out with, but we really began to see what was interesting to the people that were in the room, and that's kind of where the conversation went.
I feel like I picked people in the math department at Appalachian I made them come up with questions beforehand, so in case there was I didn't think there would be any stagnant knowing the people, but there were some general questions we had.
Yeah, people didn't have a problem talking. There was a lot of conversation. Again, I was the former head of the math department, which is why I was involved with this as well when I was there. So,
And an Appalachian grad.
Yes, I am an Yes, so lots of connections. They drag me along to participate in these, but I enjoy it. This is good. So these are just like some of the topics that we covered in the pre-calculus discussion room. I'm not going to read those out to you. I'll try not to dive deep into the math here. I'm sure you guys aren't a whole lot interested in that, but I thought what was particularly useful is just talking about like commonalities versus differences. Things like, did you use calculators in the classroom or not? Did you use software or not? And if you did, what software did you use and so forth? Were you more applications focused or theory focused, et cetera? And it gave the ASU faculty perspective on what they could do to also attract more of the community college students to come to ASU as opposed to UNC Greensboro or UNC Wilmington, right? Right. Wilmington's hard to beat, though, because it's on the beach, and a lot of people want to go there. Yeah, there you go. And lastly, it gave the community college faculty in the room a good picture of how their students' credit would actually be articulated when they came to ASU, because that's something that's a little different from university to university, because they don't have a common numbering system. Please get that soon. It would be great. So I know Florida, anybody from Florida out there, you guys have that. I'm really jealous. I'm really jealous of that. But that's different at each university. And so how the courses actually transfer in. They will transfer, but how they transfer in and for which course is the question, because they're called Universal General Education Transfer Courses. So they're guaranteed to transfer to the University of North Carolina system, but how that credit's applied is what we talked about. Go to the next one. And so this is in the quantitative literacy discussion. Again, Trina already mentioned the idea of talking about level of algebraic manipulation, because there's basically none in the community college version. It's not a course to teach you algebraic manipulation. It's to teach you math for life, finance, consumer statistics, rates of growth, and just what that means in projecting things and so forth. We also talked a lot about that 1-hour course that Trina already mentioned, and how they wanted to stress that they wanted to provide different content, not just repeat something the students already learned, so they actually get an additional experience that would be useful instead of just duplicating it.
I thought it was really good for the Appalachian faculty to hear about what the community college does, because some of the Appalachian faculty, in my mind, are a little too stuck on being able to do math instead of these life skills. Like, you can teach finance without doing the algebra. You know, there's apps, there's all sorts of technology that you can use, and just to hear, for the ASU faculty to hear that that's what the community college is doing, I thought was good. For them. So lots of things came out of these discussions. One thing that kept coming up in the pre-calc room was Appalachian used to host a math competition. So that's in my head, and I just can't figure out how to make it work, but I'm thinking. They also want Appalachian faculty to visit community college campuses. I've gone to everyone that asked me to go. So they just have to ask. I've been to Western Piedmont. I went to AB Tech this year. I mean, and it's not just me. There's other people in the department that go to either talk about careers in math or some non-traditional math topic, just so you can get an idea of what does math mean beyond algebra. So we do that. We just have to be asked. And then we have a colloquium every Friday, and we were not very good about advertising what's going on there, and they wanted to know more about what's happening on Appalachian's campus. So we're better now about posting on the Facebook page. We have a mathematical science Facebook page that they can find out what's going on. We're still trying to get the colloquia to be streamed so that the community college students can attend without physically driving the hour or more to Boone. And then, I guess, this grant that she was talking about, the last thing on the other slide was a place to keep materials. And that really came out of this grant. So a colleague of mine and I applied for money to pay community college faculty to collect some resources for this quantitative literacy course. the problem has been, like, there's a conference, a math conference for community college faculty every March. Oh, at NCMATIC, yes. And every year they're always trying to share these resources for this quantitative literacy course. And there's never been a good way to actually put them together. So Alana and I researched a lot of different technologies to try to figure out how to house this in a way that students don't have access to solutions. So our campus uses Moodle. It's called As You Learn, and they just started piloting As You Learn Global, and so we got to pilot this. And what it means is it's everyone can have access to it. So you just need a login, but that prevents students from having access, and but it's going to be available to all the community college, or well, anyone who wants access. So we paid for community college faculty to set this up, and they will be presenting next month on how everyone else can have access to this, and not just have access to it, but contribute to it also. So hopefully that's another way they can communicate. But that's how we used our grant money. Oh, well, this is the site. I just took some bits of what it looks like in As You Learn Global. So they just have different topics and then the activities in there.
So we're really giving you the math perspective, but the similar stuff happened in chemistry and in biology and so forth. It's all about just making the relationships, was the whole purpose of the Transfer Symposium, getting the community college people to talk to the university people and vice versa. So here's another way that math people in North Carolina communicate. We have an NCMATIC Slack channel. Do any of you use Slack? It's one of the social media things. So yeah, okay. So we have one kind of the whole state of North Carolina uses to discuss math things. Instructors get on there. So these are all the channels I'm subscribed to, but you can just carry on conversations about what's going on in the classroom. And we have university and community college who both participate in that. So great way to collaborate. We're passing the mic.
So another thing, several years ago, I guess, so math is different for us because our graduate program trains community college faculty. So we already have those connections because we've taught a lot of them. So thinking about what the chemistry did, it was much different because they didn't have those relationships built already. So I feel like we did a lot more because we had that first step kind of down. So one of my old students in the middle, he now now he's somewhere else. At that time, he was teaching community college, and he just said, hey, I want to bring some of my students up there and visit and see what it's like, because he loved Appalachian. He thought everyone should go there. But he was at Central Carolina, so it is not so close. So he started bringing people up every fall, and we'd organize a day for him. And so that was typically pizza with math faculty. I just want students to realize faculty are normal people. Like there's nothing to be afraid of. So I just wanted to have a very informal lunch. Then they got a tour of some STEM departments, and it depended on the interest of the students that were coming. So if there were a lot of biology majors, we'd make sure we get to the biology department, just depending on what the interests were. But it was specifically for STEM students. And then they'd visit Jane's office. Yes, of course. And then, so he is no longer there, and I thought, we really need to keep this up. I need to extend this. So not this past year, the year before, I tried something different, and it completely bombed. In getting students there. But this past year, because of the Transfer Symposium, just talking to more community college faculty, we kind of had a record, and Jonathan will say a little about that.
So from Catawba Valley, we brought 5 students, and several math faculty accompanied them. They weren't all intended to be math majors, but they were STEM. And they were all generally interested. And 2 of them, after going on the tour, like, yes, I definitely want to go to ASU. Like that cinched their decision because they spent the day looking at the facilities that ASU had. It was a day specifically for transfer students. And the other three, I don't know yet if they've made the actual decision, but they became much more likely, they said, to want to go to ASU after having this opportunity to go there. Like, this is a picture of the astronomy dark lab and stuff. You know, like, we don't have that on the community college campus. I wish we did. We do teach astronomy, but we don't have something like that, right? So they're getting to see those things, like she talked about the chemistry lab and so forth, and what they could do there. And it's not that UNC Charlotte or NC State doesn't have those as well, but ASU is showing off what they have to get the students to come to them.
So I guess I just want to say a few other things that we started this year, and in my mind it's because of the transfer symposium. I guess maybe I'm always thinking about transfer stuff. But actuarial for us, actuarial science majors and secondary ed majors, if you're a transfer student and you're not exactly in the right spot when you transfer, you're in trouble. So from the Transfer Services Office, I get a list of students that are majoring in actuarial science for secondary ed, and I contact them. And just to make sure I look at their schedule, if they're on track, it's not that many. So it's not that bad. For instance, there's one actuarial science transfer that just started in January, and I actually I had the actuarial science club contact that person to try to get them involved, because I know the social aspect is difficult for transfer students. We had our first transfer welcome event, so maybe I should say
It was not a tea. It was not a tea.
The math department has tea time every Wednesday.
See, math is really
Yes. There's tea too. But yes, there's always, we have to sign up, matters they have to. We sign up for bringing food various weeks. But we had a transfer welcome event during the first tea time of this past semester. And the intention was for STEM, actually we invited anyone that was in a math class to come. It ended up being primarily STEM students. I was shocked at how many I don't know, there was probably like 20 students? So not a lot, but I was expecting like 1, 2. But I got some transfer students, some of them which had been a part of the STEM transfer day, and they were really just question answer session for students. And I felt like it was very positive, so we will try that again. And then a question that often comes up is scholarships. On our campus, we don't have many scholarships for transfer students. So we do now have a math transfer scholarship, and then we just got an NSF STEM grant that used to be for freshmen only, and now, or freshmen and graduate students, now it's freshmen, graduate students, and transfers. So we've got them involved, and then I already mentioned that last one. Oh, back to Jane.
Over here, thank you. So as you can see, I think one of the things that we value on our campus is collaboration and getting to know our faculty. We have over 100 transfer faculty mentors representing lots of different departments that we can reach out to. Now, the math department has like 5, so it's not really. We'd like to have one in every major. They've sort of dominated the mentor program. But just real quick, I want to just share a story about the importance of the collaboration and then you can correct me if I'm wrong. I'll get sort of most of this right. So we had a student, I think in the first semester, who transferred, and she was in a math class, and she was really struggling. So of course we reached out to Trina, and Trina, who did you put her in touch with? A tutor, or did you tutor? Oh, okay. So anyway, Trina got her involved, but she was really struggling in the math class. The student got an A in the class, ended up becoming a math major, and then ended up getting a master's in math. And so, again, I just think that's the power of developing those relationships. Now, granted, if that was me, I mean, there's certain limitations that people have. I don't think I would have majored in math and gotten a math degree, but again, power of relationships. So here are some of the feedback that we got. We had 61 responses, and here are the questions that we asked. Did it meet your expectations? If no, why? What future collaborative activities did your discipline identify? What did you like most about the day? And what part of the day could have been improved? And believe me, this was not a perfect, I mean, there was a lot of, of course, if we do it again, it'll be, we'll certainly have ways to enhance it. Did we run out? Oh, we did. Okay, but there was a reason for that. I think it was somewhere and we just didn't know where it was, is what it was. But anyway, so just some of the comments here, and I'll let you read them. I like the fourth bullet. That cinnamon roll was delicious. I also like being able to discuss how different institutions focus on curriculum, mixing with colleagues from other institutions. The last one, I wish we had a golf cart. It's not flat on our campus. It's very hilly. But here, if you look at the fourth bullet, communication prior to arrival. Information may have gone to Lee, but information was not communicated to faculty. So certainly we didn't have, all positive, again, there was a lot of things that we could have improved on. Now, the top part here, pleasantly disappointed. So at the end of the day, when we were asking for comments, one of the, I think it was a community college faculty member, I don't know what discipline, was it biology? He raised his hand, he said, I was pleasantly disappointed. And I thought, what did that mean? And he said, I just didn't have very high expectations of the day. So,
he thought that you were going to tell him how to teach his classes.
Right. So, yeah, we were going to tell him how to teach his classes, and it was not going to be a give and take dialogue and a collaboration. So when he said, but I thought that was a good way to describe it, he said he was pleasantly disappointed. Yeah. So that was nice. So those were the survey comments. So I think do we have 10 minutes left? About 10? I wanted to keep some time for questions and answers, or at least questions. Oh, yeah, here we go. Okay, remind me. Okay.
Hi, Holly Herrera. My question's on, did you provide expectations or outcomes of what you would like to get out of the discipline-specific conversations, like math? Just any kind of guidelines? Do you provide an agenda or anything ahead of time?
Do you have an answer to that? Because if not,
I don't know. So do you mean, did we provide it to the community college faculty?
To anyone in that room.
So I organized the Appalachian faculty in the math department, but I feel like it happened differently in different viewpoints.
yeah. So I guess there were certain expectations from us that said that we want you to share. Again, if we look at the goals of the symposium, those were the intended outcomes, to share syllabi and teaching methodologies and what are your learning outcomes, and to be able to collaborate on a project, and again, and really the goal was just to be able to build and develop a relationship so that you can pick up the phone and call.
And I think that was key for a lot of departments that had never ever
Yes.
spoken to a community college faculty.
Yeah, I'll just add that a couple of my colleagues at CVCC had never been involved in something like this before, and they were like, this is fantastic. I'd like to do this more often and stuff. So I have a pretty good relationship because I came from ASU with all the faculty there already, but they just loved the event and that day and getting the opportunity to dialogue.
Yeah,
And that
sure.
was biology.
That was by. Other questions? Yes. Let me.
Can you talk a little bit more about the grants for collaboration and like what the monetary amounts were, how many were distributed?
Well, here's the part that we need to improve on. So we only had, out of the 6 disciplines, we have several who are working on an initiative right now, but these are the only ones who have followed through on the initiative, okay? And so we gave you $700, I believe it was. So we could have, I shouldn't tell you, I think I've already told you. We could have given her more since other departments did not follow through and request the money. But that was the one part I was a little disappointed with. But again, for the first time, the fact that these folks already had relationships with the community college faculty made it easier for that initiative. If all we did from this first curriculum alignment is just to get some conversations going between the two, then maybe that was successful.
And I would add that I think that we could help because the person in chemistry was just like, I don't know what to do. Like, what do I apply for? Yeah. So I think if we had gotten those people together and gave them ideas on what they could have done, then that would have been more successful.
Yeah, no, and you were right. And Trina is just accustomed to collaborating and can think of all different ways to keep herself busy outside of the classroom. But surprisingly enough, some of the faculty were just, again, you're right. I mean, what do I say? What do I do? What should this look like?
Thought that they would get in the room with community college, like the two girls, and they'd have nothing to say. I'm like, that's not going to happen.
Other questions? You're all going to go back to your campuses and do this?
Just out of curiosity, where did your office stem from? Did it come out of admissions, the registrar? Like, where did this idea to have this transfer services office come from?
So initially there was we were changing our general education curriculum. So as we were transforming it in 2008, and Dawn, you probably remember this, a transfer task force was formed to see, well, this is going to be really complicated for our native students. What's it going to look like for transfer students? So the transfer task force, one of the recommendations was to create an office of transfer articulation. So again, we just repurposed, I don't know if that's a right word, but repurposed 2 positions from the registrar's office, and then I was hired from the community college. So again, as we were trying to, at that time, we were just doing transfer credit evaluation, and admissions was still doing first year credit evaluation, or we used to call them freshmen. And distance ed was doing their credit evaluation. And we slowly through the years then just added on. But as a result, and this is one of the things that I suggest you all do, don't let a state initiative or an institutional initiative go by without taking advantage of it. So in 2014, there was a state initiative that every UNC campus should have an office for transfer and adult services. So we took advantage of that. And that first symposium, we knew we needed to grow our office and provide more services for transfer students. So we actually so it has to come from the ground up. It has to be, people have to buy into it. So the provost went ahead and formed another task force and made recommendations. We had the symposium. The people attending the symposium had the same recommendations. So it was a campus, they were campus recommendations, which is how, we now have, 3 credit evaluators, a transition advisor who advises students prior to arriving. We have our Jumpstart coordinator, which is a intentional programming that we do with our community college partners, and Jay is one of our transfer student mentors. And we have someone in our office with this engagement and retention. So we really, so again, these recommendations all came out of making our campus community aware of what's available. So. Are we up on time? So several things I do want to say. We'll be here afterwards if you have questions. But if you have a starburst, a little something under your chair, does anyone do? Holly, you can. Okay, there's one there. Whoever grabs it. Does anyone else have one? Okay, well, okay. So yeah. So these mugs. These well, someone has to pick it. Someone gets it. You got it. Okay, you get the mug. So these mugs, I love transfer, App loves transfer students. We had these were one of the prizes, not a prize, a gift to all the people attending our symposium. And just to let you know, through the previous symposiums, we have stickers that we gave out to our faculty and staff to put on their door that says I was a transfer student. Just lots of different stickers here. This sort of mimics the mug So feel free, and like I said, and we have our, we call these transfer talking points. So feel free to come up. My business card is here. Please fill out your survey and give it, or just where do we want to put it?
I'll put a chair out the door. You can just leave
Okay.
it.
So, well, Holly, you can tell them about the website.
I have the App State website bookmarked. It is amazing. All the resources, the toolkits, all of the pieces that they put out to everyone on all the symposiums, all the research they've done, it's all publicly available.
So transfer.appstate.edu, but this is the link to our symposium, and we have information on all of our symposiums. I really didn't pay her, and we didn't know each other until, but like I said, we're very fortunate. But I really appreciate you attending. I'm so grateful to our community college, to Trina and Jonathan, and for coming to the conference and presenting with me. And again, we'll be available after the session to speak to you.